So I'm seeing a lot of people being confused about how, Nebraskans and people in agricultural communities can be voting against their own interests. And I have a lot of experience with these people. I'm related to them. And obviously when I talk about them, I don't mean all farmers and I don't mean all the people in these states. But in my experience, the farmers have been living a fairy tale for many generations. They have been told by the government and by our own society, that they're extremely valuable, which they are, but that they are self-made men and that they exist in a vacuum and that we would be lost without them. And most weird, that they don't receive any kind of assistance, that they're self-made, which is a fairy tale. They receive a lot of assistance, but this is the story they've been telling themselves. This is a story that the government has been telling them. And this is the story that they've passed on to their children and their children's children, because they want to glamorize. They want to make what they're doing idyllic. They don't want their kids to leave the farm. They don't want their kids to go to the big city. They want them to stay and they want them to keep the farm. So their kids and their kids and their kids have all been raised with this idea that as farmers, they are heroic. They are, the backbone of America, even though at this point, the backbone of America, if it's farmers, then it's completely made out of fabricated steel and been replaced by a neurosurgeon 30 times. They don't see that. So they don't understand. When you live in a fairy tale your whole life, and when you've been raised in a fairy tale, and when your father was raised in a fairy tale, you don't use critical thinking skills. You don't analyze what you're doing. You just keep going with the fairy tale. And you don't choose a political candidate that forces you to think. You choose the political candidate that encourages you to stay in the fairy tale. So that's how they keep voting for the bad people. That's how they keep voting against their own interests, because they're in a fairy tale. They're so enmeshed in it that they don't want somebody waking them up. They want somebody who's going to keep them asleep. And unfortunately, they're going to have to wake up sometime.
To our farmers, have a lot of fun. I love you too. I love you too. It's all going to happen. New trade policy will also be great for the American farmer. I love the farmer.
During campaign, Trump told Nebraska farmers, "I love you and I will always stand with you." But now that he's back in office, what has really happened? Nebraska farmers are now facing financial uncertainty due to freeze on USDA agricultural grants and loans, halting essential investments.
I have a question for the rest of America. Does anyone even care about Nebraska? Does anyone even care?
Do you care about Nebraska? Because I have a feeling you voted for this. I mean, Nebraskans don't even care about Nebraska. Let me ask you another question. Who exactly did you think were going to work in the fields and in the farms after all of the regular day laborers, people of color, are no longer there anymore? Who did you think was going to do it? Did you think that there was just this army of white workers ready to get into those farms and pick all the vegetables? Now people like you who voted for this to happen are upset that something's affecting you, because what people like you tend to really vote for, it's not the economy. It's because you want to express racism and bigotry, and he was the only way that you could do that. But now it's affecting you. All those farms are disappearing, including that 300-year-old farm. And you want to know why nobody's upset at that? It's because you guys did it to yourself. You'd rather vote to have your racism easily spread across the United States instead of thinking about yourself, because you always vote against your own interest, don't you? And isn't it just like you? You voted to hurt other people, but now when it's starting to hurt you, you want us to feel sympathetic for you.
I just need to say it. We told you so. We told you so. We told you so. We told you so.
Trade tensions have also worsened, with retaliatory tariffs affecting key agricultural exports like soybeans, beef, and pork, directly impacting farmers' revenues. Trump showed up, smiled, and repeated the same lines. But has anything really changed for Nebraska's farmers?
So the farmers in America, they lost all their workers because they got deported. And then they voted for Trump. And then they lost a lot of the grants because this guy Musk has been, cleaning out, and he's taking from the poor. The farmers can't pay their bills. They're having to sell. And J.D. Vance set up a company so that he could buy farms. They're buying all the farms in America, just like they did with all the private houses Oh, you guys are so smart. You're brilliant. You can't make this. Okay, I have positive news. Here's the positive news. Decades of proud ignorance that you've had is coming to an end. Jesus.
In the lead up to the 2024 presidential election, Donald Trump made numerous promises to American farmers, pledging to revitalize rural economies and protect agricultural interests. Nebraska, a state with a rich farming heritage, responded by voting overwhelmingly in his favor. However, just a month into his presidency, many of these promises have come under scrutiny, leaving Nebraska's farmers questioning the decision made at the ballot box.
Well, it's been a hot minute, but I'm feeling like calling out some Maga hypocrisy. Join in with me. So today, one of my ride or die Maga acquaintances posted on his Facebook that we should not be importing produce from Mexico or China, that we should be standing behind American farmers. Hypocrisy, foul, bullshit. If you were pro-farmer, you would not have voted for the candidate who campaigned on vowing to and is actively deporting farm workers across the country. Farms, not just produce farms, but cattle farms, dairy farms, use migrant workers to run their farms. That's how they do it. That's how farms operate in the United States of America. So you cannot say you're pro-farmer and vote for Donald Trump, the man who's deporting farm workers. Now, subsequently, this specific gentleman does not have a financial woe in the world. He does not. He's not worried about the price of produce going up or the price of meat or eggs or dairy or any of that stuff going up because it doesn't affect him. He doesn't live paycheck to paycheck. He's not scrapping by. He lives quite large. So, by voting against the farmers, the price of everything's going to go up. By voting for this tariffs and trade wars, the price of everything is going to go up. So you not only voted against the farmers, you voted against the working class, struggling people of America because you don't have to worry about it. So save your little soapbox speech for we need to get behind American farmers. You should have thought of that and voted for Harris. That's the end of my rant. Have a great day.
Among Trump's promises to farmers were trade policies favorable to agriculture. Trump assured farmers that his administration would negotiate trade deals beneficial to U.S. agriculture, aiming to open new markets and reduce tariffs on American produce. Another promise was reduction of regulatory burdens. He pledged to cut down federal regulations that he claimed hampered farming operations, allowing farmers more freedom to manage their lands and resources. Last but not least, financial support and subsidies. Trump promised to maintain and even increase federal aid programs to support farmers facing challenges like natural disasters and market fluctuations. Despite this assurance, recent actions by the Trump administration have had a diverse effect on the farming community.
Does anybody care about Nebraska? That's the question that's going around TikTok right now, and to that, I respond with two questions. Did Nebraska care about anybody else? And does Nebraska care about Nebraska? Because, you see, God helps those who help themselves. And when you Nebraskans walked into the voting booth and overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump to be president, and now you're feeling the effects of that, this isn't I told you so. This is an FAFO. And I know there are Nebraskans out there that voted for Kamala Harris and did not fall into the trap of Donald Trump. Unfortunately, there were not enough of you. And now the rumors, and I'm having a hard time substantiating some of this, but the vibe that's going around is that Nebraska basically looks to be bankrupt in about 6 months because of the undocumented migrants that are being deported, or just the fact that undocumented migrants make up a large portion of their state and workforce on the farms, and they're not showing up to work because they're now afraid. they're going to be deported. So Nebraskans, especially farmers in Nebraska, did you think any further than the front of your face? Did you think any further, or were you just blinded by hate? And now people are coming out here asking, what about Nebraska? Do you guys care about Nebraska? No, I've already answered it, but the short answer is no. No, we don't. We don't care about Indiana, where I'm from. We don't care about Kentucky losing their bourbon up in Canada. We don't care about Jack Daniels in Tennessee. We don't care about the auto industry in Michigan. Are we all going to feel this? Yes, it's going to hurt. The disruptions in the food supply from Nebraskan farmers is going to hurt everybody. We are not immune, but we can't care. We can't care. We have no more sympathy to give. You guys had a chance. We spent our time telling you, talking to you, talking at you because you wouldn't listen. You decided to vote for Donald Trump. And here he is undoing your entire workforce. And when you lose your family farm of 150 years to a private company who's going to buy up all the land when you guys can't pay your bills, that's the state of America we're going to be in because you decided to vote for hate over the rest of the country and your own good. You cut off your nose to spite your face. So Nebraska, we don't care. God helps those who help themselves, and you decided you didn't want help.
The administration implemented a freeze on USDA agricultural grants and loans, causing significant financial and uncertainty among farmers.
I have a question for the rest of America. Does anyone even care about Nebraska?
Hey girl, as a Texan from a cattle ranching family now living in Florida, we did. We cared about y'all so much. That's why we told y'all for so long. Gosh, I've been screaming it for, I don't know, since at least, I don't know, the Tea Party. 08, 09? We broke it down, Project 2025, over and over. Y'all didn't listen. So now my only responses is first, bless your fucking heart. Second of all, this is what you voted for. So they're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs.
The recent policy shift raises concerns about whether Nebraska's farmers inadvertently voted against their own interest. The USDA spending freeze and escalating trade tensions have directly harmed farmers' livelihoods, contradicting the promised support. Policies leading to increased consumer prices affect farmers both as producers and consumers, diminishing their purchasing power and profitability. Nebraska's farmers, who placed their trust in Trump's promises, are now facing challenges that question the fulfillment of those commitments. As the administration policies unfold, it becomes crucial for the farming community to reassess the impact of their electoral choices and advocate for actions that genuinely support their interests and sustain their way of life. Nebraska has always been known for its strong agricultural roots. For generations, farming has been the backbone of its economy, with workers, many of them immigrants, doing the hardest labor in the fields. These are the people who plant, harvest, and process the food that keeps America running. But despite their hard work, these workers have been betrayed. Nebraska overwhelmingly voted for Trump, a leader whose policies have made life harder for the very people keeping the state's economy alive. Stricter immigrant policies have scared off much of the workforce, leaving farms struggling to find labor. Meanwhile, trade wars and tariff policies have hurt farmers, driving up costs and reducing their profits. It's ironic Nebraska depends on these workers, yet the people in power continue to push policies that harm them. Without these laborers, who will keep Nebraska's farms running? Who will do the backbreaking work that others refuse to do? The state's agricultural success has always relied on immigrant labor. Yet now, those same workers are being pushed out. This is a clear case of voting against one's own interests. Nebraska's economy thrives because of these workers, but instead of protecting them, the state has chosen a path that makes their lives even harder. If farming suffers, the whole state suffers, and right now, things are not looking good for Nebraska. Trump's policies are making it harder for farmers to survive. his crackdown on immigration has led to a massive labor shortage. Many Nebraska farms rely on seasonal workers to plant and harvest crops, but with stricter immigration policies, there simply aren't enough workers. That means crops are going unharvested, profits are dropping, and small farms are struggling to stay afloat. And let's talk about subsidies. For years, government support helped farmers weather tough times. But under Trump, those subsidies are disappearing fast. Programs that once kept struggling farms afloat are being slashed, leaving many with no safety net. Despite all this, many farmers in Nebraska continue to support Trump. Why? Some say it's about party loyalty. Others buy into the idea that he's fighting for America. But the reality is these policies are making farming harder, not easier. This is a perfect example of people voting against their own interest. Instead of looking at policies that directly impact their livelihood, many voters get caught up in slogans, party identity, or personal beliefs. But loyalty doesn't pay the bills. Now, let me just ask this as I conclude. If your vote is making your life harder, is it really worth it? Let's start making decisions that actually benefit us. Well, let me hear what your thoughts are. Drop a comment below and also remember to subscribe, like, and share as well. And until we meet again, guys, bye-bye.